Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show here with my bro Chillmont. We're going to talk all about this 14-team playoff that could be coming as soon as right after 2025.
No way!
Because this is only a 2-year deal with this 12-team playoff, and there's a lot of talk about going to 14 teams, and we're going to get into all of that in a minute.
Yeah.
Also, Nick Saban wanting to be the voice of change in college football. So there's all those things to talk about. And I could see a 14-team playoff, and I know everybody's thinking that those numbers don't work. How could that possibly work? And I'll explain all that as well. Of course, we're going to have 2 years of the 12-team playoff, which is pretty exciting. A lot of teams are going to get in that never have, so it should be a lot of fun. What do you think about the 12-team playoff? Then we'll talk about the 14-team playoff, Chillmont.
Well, we should have had a 12-team playoff for the last 5 years, and really should have started last year if ACC, who actually kind of played themselves, had not been in the way, along with the other mugs that they had, the Evil Alliance, who prevented the 12-team playoff and kept it 4, and actually ended up screwing FSU out of the deal.
Your brains need development.
But and then they have the nerve to complain about it after they tried to prevent it. But anyway, I think it's going to be wonderful for college football. You're going to have a lot of teams in the playoff. There's a potential somebody who's not even really in the top 10 could end up winning it all. That's it's a little more different in football than it is like basketball in the NCAA tournament, because somebody can get hot and just win it all. But it's really hard to do in football, but it's possible.
Well, you're going to have teams that are really good, so it wouldn't be impossible at all for the 12th team to win it all. They could get hot. They'd have to win 4 straight games against very good teams. That's going to be the tough part. But somebody's going to win at least a couple of those. Not impossible to have the Cinderella story, and a top 12 team or top 10 team could certainly do it. It wouldn't be impossible at all.
Yeah, and you could very well see a top 4 team get knocked out, a couple of them.
I would expect that to happen. Yeah, especially when you're taking the conference champions as automatic qualifiers, because then you're going to have somebody from the Big 12, you're going to have somebody from the ACC that are going to qualify. And let's say maybe Big 12 is not that strong anymore, especially with Texas and Oklahoma leaving it.
No, I know. I was looking at that, and, you could have like a 9th ranked Big 12 team win their conference championship, and all of a sudden they've got to bye.
Or you could have a number 18 or number 25 team win the Big 12 championship, and now they're automatic qualifiers.
Exactly.
They're not guaranteed a bye, but they are guaranteed a spot.
This opens up a lot more to get a lot more teams into the playoff, but it's going to open a can of worms in some instances like that. And there's going to be a lot of complaining and teeth gnashing when that happens. But that's part of it. And that's part of the fun of it, really, when you get down to it.
Well, there's going to be a couple of teams that if that happens, if you have a team win a conference championship that had no business winning it, somebody's going to get knocked out that's very deserving. So you're going to have some negativity over that for sure, especially if it's an orange and white team that goes by the name of Tennessee. Then it won't be fun at all.
No, it won't be pretty. I've got mattresses and lighter fluid saved for just that contingency.
I got you. So it should be pretty interesting to see how this plays out. So now let's talk about this 14-team playoff. And the reason that I think it will happen is that the Big Ten wants it to happen because they're already to 18 teams, and 2 years from now they could be at 20 or 22 or 24. Well, they're only going to get 1 qualifier out of that's guaranteed. They're going to want like 4. They're going to want like 4 guarantees out of that. The other thing is they're going to want a percentage of the money to go up to them because they're the big dogs, just like the SEC is going to be the same way. The Big Ten and the SEC are going to be the dominant players in this CFP. They're going to want 4 guaranteed spots every year. And with 14, that's a lot easier. And what they can probably do is trade off and say, well, we won't take as much of the pie if you give us 4 guaranteed spots.
Tiger, here, keep it fair. Keep it fair, will you?
No, I can't accept it.
Because they're going to want more of the pie, and they should get more of the pie if they don't get some sort of compromise in number of guaranteed spots.
Well, that's it. And you see, how many times we've seen over the years SEC and Big Ten dominate the top 10 at the end of the season, you'll have like 3, sometimes even 4 teams from each conference, or at least 2 or 3 from each from the SEC and Big Ten, all in the top 10 or top 12. Do they all get in, or do some of them get out, get bumped, and they're not going to be happy about that? So it's going to be overall, it's going to be great for everybody. But there's still going to be a lot of consternation in there, because some teams are still going to get bumped where they feel like they should be in the top 12 or whatever. The best news is we're always going to get the best teams.
Are you sure?
Yeah, you're guaranteed the top probably 6 to 10 will be the very best.
Yes, exactly.
You might have a couple of creakers in there. I realize, of course, now the group of 5 is guaranteed a spot as well in this. So you're going to have some teams like Liberty, for example, or a team like them that could make it, that aren't in the Power 5, that might be ranked 25th, for example, or 20th or whatever. So
Right.
there is going to be some of that. But they gave into that for a couple of different reasons. Number one, they didn't want to get sued. Number two, there are some teams that maybe it gives them a reason to be still excited about sports and have a chance to have a national title out of the group of 5, which they're never going to get. I can't imagine them actually winning it, but you never know. That would be the ultimate Cinderella story.
He's a Cinderella boy, tears in his eyes, I guess, as he lines up this last shot.
Well, it comes down to, it's almost really 2 playoffs. It's a conference champion playoff, and then it's the top ranked teams playoff.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And then they get together as 8.
yes, and so really it's a 8-man playoff.
Yeah, it's pretty ingenious, because they didn't want the conference championships to become meaningless. So they had to give them a reason. They had to make them important. And by giving a bye to the top 4 ranked out of those 5, that really makes a big deal. It makes it very important.
Exactly. And I don't know why they would want that.
Oh, yeah.
Making it rain.
Well, here's the other thing. If you don't do something like that, you might have a lot of great players that sit out of a conference championship because they don't want to get hurt and they're already guaranteed to be in the spot. So I think all of those reasons. Now, let me explain how the 14-team playoff works, because everybody's like, numbers don't work. Instead of having 4 guaranteed spots for the conference championships, you'll only have 2. The top 2 will get a bye. Then you're going to have 12 teams that'll play down to 6. Then those 2 combine with 6, and you're down to 8. So that's how that's going to work. I couldn't understand. I was like, this isn't going to work. I was trying to run the numbers.
The numbers didn't work. But if you look at it again, like 2 playoffs, it'll be the top 2 that get the buys, and then once it shrinks down to 8, then you're good.
Yeah, you couldn't even have done it had you done 6 and 6. So if you'd had 6 automatic qualifiers, you still couldn't have made that work. So it has to be 2. Then the 12 teams play down to 6, and then you've got a group of 8, just like you do now with the 4 and the 8 going down to 8. So that's how that would work. And the numbers do work that way. And it would get you 2 additional teams, which would probably be a Big Ten and an SEC team.
Yeah. And I would think those would be the 2 that would be the automatics, whoever wins the SEC and the Big Ten championship.
Also realize they're going to seed them. The college football playoff will seed the bottom 8.
Sure, Jan.
There's always going to be some grumbling, but this is going to be so much better than only a 4-team playoff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the nice thing about this, it only lasts 2 years, and after that, then they can make any changes they want or need to, and that's the way things should be. It's not a good idea to do something really long-term, because we've never done a 12-team playoff. We need to see how it goes, and if we need to make changes, let's say a couple of teams really get cheated out, and some teams that didn't deserve got in, and some teams that did deserve didn't, they can change it and add those 2, which is probably what's going to happen, because the SEC and the Big Ten are going to continue to grow, and they're going to feel like, oh, okay, we're getting creaked here. We better have some more teams, or you better give us all the money. It could happen that way because the Big Ten and SEC could just take over everything.
Yeah, not to mention Pac-12 was one of the Power 5, and now they're the gone Power 5. They're not even. They basically don't exist anymore. Then the Big 12, their best team was Oklahoma. Guess where they're going?
Yeah, in Texas, and then on
Texas.
And on top of it, Florida State's trying to figure out a way to get out of the ACC. If they get out of an ACC and it's seen how to do, North Carolina, Virginia, et cetera, all those teams might head out, and then the ACC starts crumbling.
Yeah, that could end up going the way of the Pac-12. But it's going to be a fluid situation for years to come, I think. But we're definitely headed in the right direction. I love the idea of a 12-man playoff. We should have had a playoff for years. We should have had a 12-team playoff the last couple of years, but I'm glad it's finally here.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I know there's going to be some people that like it the old way, but I couldn't stand the old way because so many really quality clubs, like a Georgia, for example, didn't get to be in the playoff. I thought that was humongously unfair.
That was the only loss.
Yeah. And then on top of it, you had a perfect 13-0 FSU that got creaked. They didn't get to be in the game. I mean, it was awful. I thought that was awful to be perfect 13-0, win your conference championship, and you're not even in the top 4 spots.
Exactly. And there'll be a little bit, the nice thing about this being 12 teams, it's not going to be like a team that should have been in the top 4. It's going to be a team that they can say, well, we should have been in the top 10 or something like that. We still know we got the best teams all in the playoff. There's really no question of that anymore.
Yeah. It won't be like it was this last year was a nightmare. And I'm glad everybody got to see what a nightmare it was. So we never, ever hear anybody say, let's go back. Nobody is going to ever want it, because as soon as they do, they're going to get smacked down so fast it's not even funny.
Snap out of it.
Nobody from Florida State and Georgia's going to, that's for sure.
Absolutely not. Or Ohio State either. All right, folks, now we're going to talk a little bit about Nick Saban and how he's wanting to be the voice of change for college football. We'll go into this a little bit. Says, he wants to be the voice of change. Says, if my voice can bring about some meaningful change, I want to help any way I can because I love the players and I love college football. What we have now is not college football as we know it. You hear somebody use the word student athlete, that doesn't exist. So he obviously wants to get heavily involved in the NIL and transfer portal. The biggest issue with him wanting to get involved in this, Gilmont, is the fact that he's going to have to accept the fact that the courts are now involved, and it's going to have to be some sort of situation to where the players have a voice. If you're going to have any type of consistency with contracts and things like that, even collective bargaining might have to occur. The problem is you cannot go back. You cannot, because the courts are not going to allow it. The Supreme Court's already ruled 9-0 that you cannot break the Sherman Act, which is from 1890. It's been there for 140 years plus. And the NCAA has pretty much been breaking that law for all those years. It's just it never got to the courts. Yeah, and the horse is out of the barn. You can't, and you can't put it back in. It's never going to happen. And it's it's kind of funny that the man who hated the NIL, hated the transfer portal, is now the voice of change.
You serious?
Which is kind of laughable. That's like the NCAA. Oh, now we're the voice of change too, because we didn't fight to stop all that. Oh, yeah, you did. And also, I read an article. He said he's going to be around the Alabama program, helping out all he can. He said he was going to meet with the defensive coordinator soon. And I mean, if you're that DeBoer guy, that's the last thing you want him is looking over your shoulder and talking to your coordinators and basically assistant head coaching. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that plays out because, man, it would be hard to tell Nick Saban to hit the door. And you have to be extremely careful because he's revered down there. But at the same time, I need to run my offense and my defense, and I need to play like the way it got me this job to begin with. And that's not the Saban way. The only person who could coach like Saban was Saban. Yeah, it could be pretty interesting to see how that plays out. And, of course, Saban is going to favor the SEC in everything and anything he does. So that's going to make a lot of conferences uncomfortable. If he becomes the voice of change for college football, they're all going to think he's going to put his foot on the scales or his hand on the scales for the SEC. Well, now that he's not coaching, although he'll have a voice because he's going to be on College Game Day making $20 million a year, and he's not going away anytime soon. And he's still obviously he'll be extremely respected, and people are going to listen when he talks.
When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But DeBoer is already in a situation where you're following a legend, you're following the GOAT, which is never easy. Everybody's going to compare, and now you've got Saban breathing down your neck too, looking over your shoulder. I don't know if I'd do it that way or not there, Mr. DeBoer.
All right, folks, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me know oh, there's Bambi. There's the
You know,
Bambi.
Bambi had to make an appearance.
All right. So, yeah, hit that subscribe button. It is on your right, my left. And also right over here is the most recent video, YouTube. Thanks, you'll enjoy. And we will see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.